Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday Talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I am your host, Nor Kyle.
And I am her faithful sidekick, not psychic, sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Oh, definitely, thanks for clarifying that, Mushtaq. For those who may have needed that clarified, it's important. There's a distinction to be made there.
There
So,
is, there's, I don't know shit about the future.
it's kind of one of those things that it's like, I don't know if I want to know right now.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anyways, thank you for joining us, whether you're here live or watching on the replay. We are so happy to have you joining us. So here we are, another Sunday talk. Welcome to the Nine-Sided Circle. We do a little spiel on our YouTube channel, of course, because we definitely encourage you to share and comment and subscribe to our channel, like our videos, whatever you can do to help us, just make sure that we can keep the machine humming in the good sense, not in the Gurdjieffian robot sense. That's definitely what we're trying to
Help us to defeat
tackle
the
here.
algorithm.
There you go. Yay. So, we have many links in our description. These are the ways that you can help us out as well. You can ah, join our Facebook group, for instance. You can join our mailing list, which I always recommend these days so that people can, if they so desire, check out of social media. I know that that can be very important to people, but this is one way we can continue to keep in touch. And to make sure that Mushtak and I can keep a roof over our head and pay our bills in these crazy times, feel free to send us a donation via our PayPal or our Stripe. You can find both of those links in the description as well. And for those of you who are looking for a bit of one-on-one support or support from Mushtaq and me sitting with you together on Zoom, you can send us an email and ask about some private sessions. Our fees are reasonable, and we really do enjoy taking the time to help people figure out their path for themselves and offering support along the way. Have I missed anything, Mushtaq?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find other stuff in there like our swag and yada yada. Take a look for yourself, check it out, and hopefully you'll stick around. So, without further ado, let's get to our topic this week. Whew, we are talking about the chief feature, which for some people is a very exciting topic, and for others, it's, oh no, I don't want to know the deepest, darkest things about myself that I am so ashamed of. This is kind of one of those things where the rubber meets the road, as it were. So, where should we begin?
Where should we begin? Uh, let's define the chief feature. What the heck is the chief feature, Nor?
What is the chief feature? The chief feature is that thing that kind of sits at the core of the personality we've developed over a lifetime that really sets the tone for how our ego operates in the world. It's a kind of a, we can think of it as the seed of all of our habits, our things that we do that hurt ourselves, hurt other people. It's that thing that we cannot resist doing, frankly, until we realize we're doing it. So, how would you define it, Mushtaq?
That's pretty much it.
Mm.
Um, Gurdjieff also, especially early on, referred to it as the chief fault because he wanted to make sure that y'all understood that this was a negative thing. This was not something that was good for you. And as Noor said, this is like a seed that the false personality is built around. This is the master gear of the mechanism. It's something that tends to develop early on and will run your life for your entire life. In Arabic, this is known as nafs al-amara, which means the commanding self, the commanding ego. And it is uh, entirely mechanical. This is the place where your attention goes when you fall asleep. Think about
Commanding
that.
and compelling.
Yes. And this is how it works. The Yoga Sutra describes it better than anything I've ever seen when it talks about what yoga is. And this is in the beginning of the Samadhi Pada, which is the first section of the Yoga Sutra. The first couple of lines um, it basically goes, this is the teaching of yoga. Yoga is the stilling of the chitta vritti, the churning of the cognitive mind. And then it says, when the chitta vritti is stilled, the seer is in its proper place as witness to the given. It's witness to whatever is actually existent. And then it says, at all other times, the seer, the witness, is identified with the objects that are given to it. Now, that's fairly vague. Here's the thing. Each of us is identified with something. I mean, maybe not you. You might be the Buddha, but everybody else, all the rest of us are identified with something. And this thing that we are identified with, and it's not really a thing, which makes it harder, uh, is what the chief feature is formed around. Now, think about when you are in a state of mechanical consciousness. Reflect back on the last time you noticed this and woke up for a second. What was your mind doing? You don't have to answer that right out loud, but I want you to think about it for a moment. What was your mind doing when you were just running on automatic? And what you'll notice is that your mind is doing what it always does. It will be focused on and identified with a particular pattern of thought. And Gurdjieff pointed out that this is what personality is created out of. Your personality forms around this. So think of this, uh, that diagram behind me. You'll see uh, there's a little center point that then goes out into three triangles and then goes into all of this other stuff. That little center point is the chief feature. Everything else around it is personality. And the further out you get, the more complex the personality is. Now, people have taken this basic teaching and ran with it in different ways. One of the ways that they have ran with it is the infamous enneagram of personality. That's not what we're talking about. The enneagram of personality is just another personality test like you know, the Stanford, the
Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs, yeah, all of that stuff. And it's about the same value as the rest of them. This is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the incredibly irritating little grain of sand that forms around it the hard shell of the pearl. Ah, James has his hand up. Yes, James, you don't have your hand up. I'm disappointed. I was ready for a really good question at this point.
Only just be reinforcing what you've said because until I bumped into you guys, my impression of the whole Enneagram thing was it's yet another personality test, another set of classifications for you to identify with and live your life from.
Right in
And,
one.
and yeah, so
Say, give the man a cigar, but cigars are not healthy for you and they smell bad. So
hmm,
give him a joint.
All right, so this is not that. The reason being we are not trying to solidify a thing, but kind of ease up on it.
Yeah, we are not trying to make your personality better. Your personality is stupid. It will always be stupid. No matter what you do to it, it will remain stupid for your whole life. That's its nature. And you can talk about the positive qualities of the chief feature and all of that, but there's a story about this doctor, and he decides that he is going to devote his life to the treatment and cure of this particularly horrible and disfiguring disease. So he goes to the colony where these people are, and for some years he serves them. And he learns to, the flesh is being eaten off and all of this kind of stuff. And he learns to deal with that. And then one day, as these things do, he contracts the disease. He looks in the mirror and he says, yeah, but on me it looks good. That is the chief feature. If you like your chief feature, you're going, yeah, on me it looks good. The work requires that you begin to have knowledge of your chief feature. You need to see and hear and feel and smell and taste how the machine works for you. Kyle,
Yes. Um, I'm reminded of one of the most fantastic talks from Alan Watts that I heard a while ago, but he basically laid out this idea, and I think this is kind of what we're talking about, but how someone's most obvious characteristic, we're often not, we often don't realize it. And also, other people never point it out to us because it's so obvious to them. So it's like if someone's a blabbermouth, like no one might say anything about it because it's so obvious. And then the person who is the blabbermouth obviously never realizes it because they're a blabbermouth. And like, it's just kind of this
yeah,
weird, like circling around the idea, but it's never ever addressed. And yeah, I just thought that was wonderful.
yeah, and that's kind of it. Only it's not just other people, it's mostly you. You
Yeah.
never address it. Now, how do we go about examining our chief feature? This is where the Enneagram can come in and be useful. On the Enneagram, actually, I should probably find an Enneagram and put it up here so we could talk about it.
All
Like
right.
wise, intelligent people, or the lunatics that we actually are.
Lunacy is that our chief feature?
That could
We're
be our
not
chief
talking
feature.
about, but probably should.
All right. So I'm going to share the screen. And you should all be seeing an enneagram.
Just happens to be our logo.
Just happens to be our logo because our logo is the nine-sided circle, which is what we have here. So we have a circle. That's the blue thing. We have the red triangle, which is the shock points, and then we have the moving lines. You don't need to know any of that. What you need to know is that these are divided into three. Starting from the top here, this is a shock point. This is a preparation point. This is an action point. Shock, preparation, action, shock, preparation, action. These three,
The top three.
the top three, are going to encompass every aspect of anger. These three, and these are for 1, 2, 3. Preparation, or this would be the action point, and then the shock point, and then the preparation point. These rotate in strange ways. But these three represent all of the possible qualities of confusion of self. And these three, here, here, and here, represent all of the possible qualities of fear.
So the bottom left, three.
Bottom left, 1, 2, 3. So when you ask yourself, where does my attention go when I am asleep, when I'm robotic? Are my thoughts around anger in some form or another? Do they have something to do with wrongs that have been done to me that I ruminate upon, or things that I should have said but I didn't and I'm pissed off about that, or people whose faces I really want to punch in, or any of that stuff? That goes up here. If your thoughts lean towards confusion, lean towards confusion of feeling in some way or another. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to relate to people. Any of that stuff. Every possible kind of confusion of feeling, you would look at these 3 points. If your thought patterns revolve around fear, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of I'm going to lose something, or people are going to attack me, or I have to attack people before they attack me, or I'm going to get things taken away from me, and that sort of thing. That revolves around here. Why is this important? Any thoughts on that, on why this matters at all?
Ian?
Yeah, one of the things it's very interesting the way you put that together, because one of the things I've been noticing for a while now, I wasn't sure what to make of it, is that I seem to have a pervasive sense of anxiety that sort of goes through a whole lot of things. And this sounds as though it very much fits somewhere on that fear
Could
area.
very well be. Doesn't necessarily have to fit there, because all of the 3 fields will experience different kinds of anxiety. but that would be the most likely place to look.
Good starting place.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, and the thing that I've been finding interesting about it is just that it's so pervasive.
Yeah.
No matter what else is going on, it's just something that's there under the surface, and I've been starting to notice that.
And that is perfect.
Mhm. Thank you, Ian.
So each of these points represents what we call a fixation of attention. And that's what the Yoga Sutra is talking about. When the seer is identified with that which is being seen, that's a fixation of attention. And that will be habitual. Habitual shortly after birth, in some ways or another. So let me stop this for a minute so I can stare at you guys. Where does your attention fixate? This is the first question. This is where self-observation comes into play. When you're doing self-observation on yourself, one of the important questions to ask is, where does my attention fixate? What is my internal dialogue? And something that scientists have determined some years ago is that your internal dialogue doesn't really change much throughout your life. What you talked about 10 years ago is what you're talking about now, what you'll be talking about 10 years from now, unless you do something.
I'm sure many of us can relate to that if we give it some
Yeah,
reflection.
I'm pretty sure everybody here is going to be able to relate to it to some extent because most of you are somewhat more self-revelatory than a lot of people.
Mm.
No, to be honest, I find that a little surprising. Um, one of the questions I was thinking of asking is, does the chief feature change in any way over the life? Because I mean, I've gone through a whole lot of changes at various times, as you know, and my focus is different.
Yeah, you're a bit of an outlier, as are most people who actually show up to these talks. So you might not be the best example, but the only way to know is if you take stock of your internal conversations. What do you talk about? What is the quality of the speech? Because the thing is, the chief feature will change in quantity. It'll grow, it'll get bigger, it'll get more solid, it will become sedimented, but it won't change in quality very much unless you do work on yourself. This is the big caveat. If you do no work on yourself, your chief feature stays pretty much the same for your whole life. If you do work on yourself, you begin to free yourself from the mechanical qualities of the chief feature. The chief feature will still be there as a part of your personality, but it won't be able to hijack you quite so easily. And do understand that that's what we're talking about. We are talking about your conscious self being hijacked and fixated upon this internal object.
Does that offer any clarity, Ian?
I think I'm going to have to think about that for a while.
Notice how you think about it.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm particularly thinking about is that there have been times in my life where I've been very much driven by something I want to find out or get insight into. I can't really find the words that describe it. I can say that my creativity has always been driven by something that matters. For example, I've never been into puzzles or just solving things for the sake of it. Um, but if I've got something that I think matters, then I my focus go can go entirely into trying to figure out how to deal with that or how to find a solution for something or whatever. And I think one of the things that's different about where I am right now is that I really don't have anything that's motivating me all that much in any direction there. I occasionally get little things that I focus on and so on, but there's nothing that's been terribly driving. Um, and so I don't quite know what to make of that because I'm clearly in a different mode when I'm in one of those creative modes than I am these days.
Well, that's a good segue into the next part of the talk.
Needs to be a service.
Me, me too. I am happy that you did that because it's a perfect entree into the next idea, which is there is a difference between content and process. The content of your chief feature can change a little bit here and there. Sometimes it will change a lot, but the process of it, the process of fixation and the things that it fixates around, uh,
I got it covered.
beat you to it. The process of what um, how you do this will remain pretty much the same. So this is where I can't tell you what you're doing. You're going to have to figure it out for yourself through self-observation and being very meticulous about that. But bear in mind that while content can change, like you're describing creative, non-creative, the process might be very similar between the two. Does that make it any sense at all, or am I just making funny noises at you?
It sort of makes sense, but I think I'm going to have to think about that for probably quite a long while.
Yeah, but this is not something that we're going to get in an hour. I
Yeah. Um, what I do think so far is that this starts to give me an interestingly different perspective on how to think about some of these things and how to observe, not really how to observe so much as perhaps how to organize the different things that I'm observing.
That's what we're looking for. This is an organizational process that you can think about and see if you can fit it into your life experience. What else do y'all think? Everybody's so quiet tonight.
Osama.
Uh, yeah, this is definitely interesting because the 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 categories that are given, like when you first introduced the idea, I was like, okay, where where would that be? What would that chief feature be without any backdrop or any kind of already given system, right? Or categorization. I'm like, okay, does it just even the fact of identification itself, like that seemed like a chief feature, just ego born and it just wants to identify right off the bat. Um, Meaning like it's like the building blocks of the chief feature. But with that said, given the three categories that you presented, and looking at that and be like, okay, out of these three, these particular three, um, where would I be more lenient, or where does um, my ego lean to? And I can see that fear try like that part that you mentioned. Um, and also at the same time, how even professionally that manifested. Like I work in areas where I'm dealing with liability, like whether it's insurance, whether it's asset protection, whether it's nonprofit work, just even the work that's not the most enjoyable, but it's the lowest hanging fruit. It's the one that I can do really easily. I can work in trusts, I can do liability protection, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, whoa, okay, that's kind of interesting how the chief feature itself um, can, using those three uh, areas, can try to hold on to itself and defend itself, even in how it provides for for myself or for the individual or whatever. Um, and kind of going back to what Ian was saying, the only way that I can um, kind of disengage from that itself is through creativity. And when I do feel like I need a place to um, or that motivator to kind of come in and feel like, oh, I need to do, I need to go all in. It's like I'm just out there trying to look for problems to solve or liabilities to kind of thinking of like liability perspective. So this is definitely something that's interesting. And yet the question for me would be, if I didn't have those three areas, how would I even go about that? Would it be kind of like a really open-ended question towards the oneself and observation and finding these little qualities that I can, oh, okay, that seems like I lean more towards this, more towards that.
I
Yeah, these are
think
my thoughts.
that you would end up with something like those three qualities, but it would take you a while to get there, and you'd have to do lots of observation of self and others.
Yeah, like finding a starting point no matter where we start and then just narrowing down like, okay, what's the common factor in all of these phenomena that I'm witnessing in my life that I do or that I perpetuate or seek, whatever it is. So go ahead,
Yeah.
Osama. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also that seeing where or the quantity of each section, right? Like within the anger, okay, I can see how maybe that I have a bit of that, and the other one, which was confusion, right? Like I can see, but like the chief one, right? Like having a little bit of all three, kind of.
Yeah, as I
Yeah,
think
for sure.
most of us or all of us have some of all three of these, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that everybody is going to have all of these qualities. Everybody has the possibility of every possible quality that a human being can experience. And the question is, what are you drawn to over and over again?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I
Where do
mean,
you limit yourself?
yep.
Because each of these is a limitation.
Because we are all multiplicity and unity, but we pick favorites within that multiplicity to express. And some of them lead us towards the polarity, I guess we could say, of unity, and some of them lead us towards the polarity of multiplicity and disorientation and separateness and getting lost in things. Yeah, I had a friend tell me this week that they encountered a situation where they were seeking help on an array of life problems. And the person who they sought help from was hedging with them, a little bit afraid to like say the truth, but they really got into it to the point where the person that my friend sought help one from was like, this is this is this is arrogance. This is what I'm trying to point out to you or what you're asking me to help you with. And here you are, you're doing the thing. And my friend was like, see, this is what keeps coming up in my relationships over and over again. But the thing is, I want to see it. I want to change. And so that just released the tension then and there. And then my friend and the person they sought help from, they were able to move forward from that. And it was this just happens to be coincidental that this incident happened this week because this is an example of when you find yourself able to name the thing, when you find yourself able to grasp it, so to speak, or to set it apart and really focus on it, it gives you a sense of peace. It gives you a sense of, oh my God, I can work with this. I see it for what it is. Oh man, I have a lot to sort out, but at least I have a starting point. And that can be such a relief. That can be such a huge leap forward, even when you're being slapped in the face with reality about something that may feel kind of like, oh man, I was dreading this. I knew it was true, but I was dreading hearing about it. Osama.
Yeah. Um, it's made me think of a question now. Do these three, let's say, main qualities, I guess, um, do they transmute to three different qualities, like once they're worked on, or do they all just transmute into one particular quality, which is true for all three of them?
There's
Is-
always going to be a slant, as far as I can tell. And the qualities that I mentioned are incredibly generalized. And within each of the qualities that I mentioned, there are an infinite number of possibilities. And, you can make of that what you will. You could get lost in the enneagram of personality, and they'll give you structures. The structures actually are, to me, fairly meaningless, but some people dig it. But I prefer understanding the process and creating your own point on the enneagram. It's way more fun.
So kind of like digging deep, finding something approximate to that seed I was mentioning earlier, right? And then working to really witness how that shows up and responding to it from that. Taking ownership. I think the Enneagram is kind of the Enneagram of personality is sort of a spiritual bypassy way of taking ownership of these things that we get
Say
stuck
that
on.
out loud.
I said it out loud. I said it. Hurt feelings. Oh no. But yeah, and like we said a couple weeks ago, spiritual bypassing isn't all bad, but if you get stuck there, if you get trapped there and you just continue on like that and you wonder why you're having the same problems over and over again, well, there you have it.
Wait, so the I- I'm not sure I understood what both of you have said, but maybe my question, meaning like for somebody who's within that universe or within that area of anger, right?
Hmm.
And they're working on transmuting that anger into that's it. They're sick and tired of doing all that, right?
Hmm.
Is the desire, let's say, to transmute that into compassion? Is it, would that become kind of like the main or new area of attention and focus for that individual?
Maybe. It will depend on the individual. I mean, that would certainly be a good thing to try.
It's a potential remedy. Here's the
Yeah.
thing, every person is different. So just as you discover that core of habituation and, mechanicalness, you try out what works for remedies as well.
Yeah. So for me, for instance, compassion is not the main motivator. It is much more um, the sense of natural perfection in the universe.
Lofty.
Yeah, it's not that lofty because my particular chief feature is convinced that nothing is going right. Nobody is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and everybody's screwing up, and it's all wrong, and it would all be better if they only listened to me. So I concentrate on uh, understanding that the universe is exactly as it should be at any given moment. Even the parts that I don't like, even the parts that are hideous and ugly, and we take it from there. And that creates a interesting sense of peace.
Yep. Yeah. What was it like for you when you first, I don't know if we'd say discovered, uncovered that sense that everything is wrong. And if people would just listen to me, we could fix this.
What was it like? Well,
You remember,
yeah, I mean, I did a lot of paying attention to this sort of thing, and it all revolved around should. The word should. I should be doing this. They should be doing this. Those people should have done that. I should have done that. And I had to train myself out of that word. Changing that one word changed everything for me
Mm.
because I used to should all over myself. And I prefer not to do that.
Yeah.
And my experience is that the word should always precedes a lie. So I've talked about this with people whose attention tends to go there. One of the tricks that I used was anytime I found myself saying should, especially to myself, I should be doing this, I would change it consciously. I would say, I want to do this and see how that felt. And then say, I refuse to do this and see how that felt. And then I would go with the one that felt real for me. Pissed off a lot of people.
Yeah, I can see how that would piss off a lot of people. And yet I relate to it because I think one of the phrases that I repeat over and over again is I don't know. I don't know, as in I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know what to expect. I don't know who I can depend on or what's happening tomorrow. I don't know. And that brings up this sense of trepidation. And I mean, Ian was talking about anxiety, like mine shows up through the confusion and feeling like I need to somehow control things, even if that means taking control through checking out. Because that's a choice too. No choice is also a choice. And so I just start thinking, well, I can only focus on myself. So I'm just gonna care about me and my needs. And I can't, I'm stressed enough. I'm stressed enough. If I take anything else on, I'm gonna break. So one antidote for me, or one remedy, is to do the whole, trust in God, tie the camel thing. Do what I can to the extent that I can, and then let go and let God.
That should be a t-shirt.
I didn't make it up, but yes.
I know. We have heard this before somewhere.
Yes.
So, how do you go about starting to do this? One very good way is start keeping a journal. Every day, when you notice what you're thinking, write it down. Collect up a minimum of 1 month of this, preferably 3 months. And then go back and examine it. See what the patterns are.
Yes, yes. So Osama says, this is great. My quote unquote word is I can't. One way that I experimented was to say yes to pretty much all things that came my way, which is must have felt wild, must have felt really like intense, right?
Yeah,
Perhaps
for
even
sure.
terrifying. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I got into things that not necessarily great and kind of stretched myself thin in a lot of
Hmm.
different areas. But that was the way, like realizing that word or that phrase,
Oh yeah.
um, and yeah, no, that this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing you can do when you're journaling. Look for that word or that phrase that is indicative of what you say to yourself all the time. And when you find it, there are ways to fix it.
Mm,
I can't tell you all the ways because everybody's going to have a different phrase.
yep.
Kyle, you have a thought.
Y- Yeah, I wanted to pipe in on that, Osama. Playing that yes man game. I did that once and I ended up in the Olympics, in the swimming pool in Japan, so careful doing that. You might get stretched a
Amazing.
little thin and
That's great. That's
pulled to
great.
places you don't expect.
Man, that's crazy. That's wild.
Yeah,
True story.
Yes.
I like that. Question is, did you win?
I wasn't competing, I was working, but I did get to swim in the pool.
Awesome.
Good
Yeah.
enough. In
That
that
still
case,
sounds like
you
a lot
won.
of fun. Yeah.
I would count that as a win. Yeah.
Hmm. Yep.
So another way is talking this out with a friend. If you have somebody close enough that you can trust them with your innermost thoughts, talk it out with them. Let them talk it out with you if they want to. But take turns. Don't do it all at the same time. One of you has to be the observer, the listener, the witness to it. There are not, and they shouldn't tell you, they shouldn't give you advice. They shouldn't say, "Oh, this is that." They should just listen and sometimes reflect back what you're saying.
Yeah. And I think this sense of like having that be a mutual practice allows it to be a case where neither of you is in the position of knowing better than the other. You're both revealing that there are things that you have to work on that you are perhaps sensitive about, but that you're a support for one another. Instead of it being a situation where, one person is telling it like it is about you, giving you a read, or, you start feeling like it's you, you're putting the person on read or you're kind of surrendering to someone's opinion of you. Either way, you don't want to get stuck there. This needs to be balanced. And some people would love the opportunity to tell you what they think is wrong with you, right? Let's try not to make it like that. Wait, you want me to tell you how you suck? Okay, I
Yeah,
hope
that's
you're ready for
uh,
this.
not the exercise at all.
Right. Yep. I mean, if you feel that vindictive tendency coming up, then maybe that's a sign that that's something to look at too. Yeah.
So another way to begin to look for your cheap future is you look in books, preferably in in fiction books.
Mhm.
Look at the character that is most attractive to you. If you read Sherlock Holmes, are you Holmes? Are you Watson? Are you Moriarty? Are you, what was the woman's name? Do you
No.
remember, Nora?
I should remember we just we just revisited it. Isn't it like Adler or something like that?
Yes, Irene Adler.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you Irene?
People used to do that with women used to do that with Sex in the City. Which Sex in the City character are you?
Yeah, it's not that though. You look at what attracts you, and then you chart out notes of what about that character attracts you? What about that character makes you feel like you could be simpatico with them?
Hmm,
Like in the home story, Irene Adler is the one I feel most kinship with. It's not
hmm,
Holmes. It's not Watson.
interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, it's not Moriarty. It's not Inspector or whatever his name is. It's not any of those guys. If Irene Adler were a dude, it would be me.
Sketchy.
A little sketchy, yeah.
Yep, she's
But yeah, the
yeah.
only person who ever outwitted Holmes. Gotta love that. Holmes referred to her as the woman. So, Lord of the Rings. Who are you in Lord of the Rings? You might be Sauron, you never know, or Saruman. You might be uh, any of them.
Gosh, I haven't really thought about it.
Yeah. And then you say, what are the qualities here? And you write them down. These are the qualities of this character that I'm drawn to. Once you've done that, you ask yourself, do I have these qualities within me? And the answer is either going to be yes or no. If it's yes, that's one bit of information. If it's no, that's another bit of information. If it's no, it's like, what would it mean if I did have these qualities inside of me? What would it antidote within myself?
And here's where it's interesting because if you get another party that knows you involved and you can get their feedback on your self-assessment, like, do you have these qualities or not? They can give you feedback on whether you have an accurate perception of yourself or not, at least as far as their experience of you is concerned.
And all of this is just fuel. And it goes back again and again to two things: self-observation, because these are just forms of self-observation. What is it that you do? And self-remembering. Can I be awake enough to notice when I start falling into this pattern and hold myself above the pattern? That's the hard part. That's the tricky part. But that's like the last step, holding yourself above the pattern. So even if the pattern plays out, you're not identified with it. You look and go, oh, the robot is doing this.
Mm.
How droll.
It's hard.
It
It,
is
it
hard.
it feels like it's impossible to get to that point, especially when you're at the bottom of the hill looking upward in this process. Ian,
I think it's a very interesting technique. I think one of the challenges that I will have with it is that I've never been any good at characterizing people. Um, but I've been sort of trying to think through, some books, stories that I like, and who I might identify with. I haven't come up with any good ones yet, but it probably wouldn't be too hard when I get a little bit of time to sort of look through my library and see what springs out. But I don't know that I would have the time to journal these days. I did try dream journaling many years ago, and I had to give it up because it just taking too much of my time.
Mm.
Uh,
Well, then you're just going to have to do plain old-fashioned self-remembering.
yeah, I can do that. In fact, I think it'd be very interesting, given the amount of TV I watch, to be able to do that with the TV shows I watch and look at the characters who I admire. That actually, this is something you can clarify for me. Is it so much who you admire or who you like to be like, or what's the other way of
It's who you're drawn to. And sometimes you'll find like Nora and I occasionally watch a series called Billions. And there is absolutely no one in that show that I find myself drawn to as a human being.
Mm.
yeah, I know I watched the first season of that. I think I probably watched some of the second. And I would have liked to have watched more because I really like Damian Lewis, but and also the psychiatrist woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, but it was just what happens to me is I have too many shows I want to watch, and sometimes even the ones I want to watch, I have to just drop because I can't fit them in.
Yeah, we don't have that problem. We tend to find one show and just watch it.
Nightly for a while, off and on.
Yeah, I've got a backlog that's at least 9 episodes of shows that are in my top tier, plus another. There's
Well,
quite a few
that
more.
in itself is information.
Yes.
And that will
I
tell
guess
you
Yeah.
so.
something about yourself.
Yeah.
But because you mentioned billions and stuff and the psychiatrist lady, I don't love the psychiatrist lady. I end up disliking her quite a bit, but I do feel drawn to her as a figure, as a persona. So you can read into that what you will if you know anything about her, but yeah. So there's one of mine. Thanks, Ian. Assuming do you have any other thoughts you want to add?
No, I'm just just starting to think.
Yeah, no problem. Go for it. Kyle, I see you might have something you want to share.
Yeah, I heard recently a way to take the writing technique to another level is to like first thing in the morning start writing. And that way you can try and get some things down on paper before all your filters set in and all your, you know, usual habits start to take hold of things. And after you do this for a while, I haven't done it, but after you do it for a couple weeks or a few weeks, then you start to see some things come up that uh you you might not have expected or
Well,
might
if you do decide to try it, let us know how it works.
Yeah, yeah. I have found it to be the case either like waking up in the middle of the night and doing it, even if I go back to sleep after, when you're just kind of like straight out of sleep and you catch yourself off guard a little bit, Or yeah, when you wake up in the morning, but you just have to make sure you're not interrupted by other things, people, the desire for coffee,
The
that kind of
desire for
thing.
coffee trumps everything else.
For some of us. Full disclosure, I'm not a coffee drinker, but Mushtaq definitely is.
Yeah. I am not happy until I have my cup of coffee in my hand and I take the first sip and I go, okay, now I can face the day.
Mm,
And it's not even the caffeine, it's just there's a certain comfort in coffee.
mm,
And then there's the caffeine.
Yes, my first thing is tea, strong tea.
mm. But excellent suggestion, Kyle, and maybe you'll get an opportunity to explore that.
Yeah. So this is basically what we had to talk about tonight. I mean, I know people are going to get all excited and think we're going to reveal secrets that Gurdjieff never told anybody, but it's the work. It's not the secrets. And the work is mostly elbow grease. Do they still use that term?
They do,
Know what
yeah.
elbow grease means?
I mean, I have no idea what it means, but I know that people still say
Yeah.
it.
It means getting down and doing the hard work,
Oh, well, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
applying yourself to the task.
Mhm.
And the first step is to get a sense of where your attention goes when you move into mechanical sleep. The second step is to describe the circumstances that cause the fixation, cause you to move into that mechanical sleep. And then the third step is to practice self-remembering the moment there is an appearance of this beginning to happen and see if you can stay awake during that experience, which will either short circuit it or at least give you some really interesting information on it.
Definitely.
That's it. That's the whole secret. And realize that this is just the first stage. Sufis say there are 7 stages to developing the nafs. Nafs al-amara is the first stage. And we've talked about the other stages at various different times. And I'll see if I can find one of the links and put it up here so you can go back and refresh your minds if you want.
Mhm.
Osama.
Yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to mention is the correlation that you made between the self-commanding self نفس الأمارة بالسوء, the commanding ego, and this the chief feature.
Yeah, it's the
I
same
feel like
exact thing. Yeah.
I feel it for me it gave this more subtle view of the نفس الأمارة,
Yeah.
because most of the time the way that it's described, that first stage, it's like, like whatever.
Yeah. It's
You're
the part of
lying
you that
or
leads you to evil and makes you do
it,
terrible things like eat bacon and not pray 5 times a
The
day.
whispers of Shaitan are upon you.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, not in the religious context, but in like the, lying, um, you know, just doing stuff that unethical, like really
Yeah.
just not even being
Avoiding
awake at all.
issues.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, getting into like all crazy stuff. But
Yeah.
this, I think it just goes just a little bit more subtle into how that part of the ego can still penetrate into just like deep. It can really go into these more subtle things.
Mm.
So I thought that was helpful for me also, this
Yeah.
kind of correlation at a deeper, more subtle sense.
I'm glad that's helpful. Yeah, it gives us more to think about too. I mean, one way that's coming up for me right now is that these behaviors are kind of like protective mechanisms, right? It's like the muscles are squeezed so tight as we shield this is a physical metaphor. We shield our bodies by tightening our muscles. And how do we relieve some of the pain and discomfort that comes with doing that is we learn how to relax that tightness over time, but you have to learn to trust the process that your body's going to be okay as you do that. And I feel like that's kind of what this practice is you're taking a look, you're taking notice that the muscles are held so tightly that they're cramping and cutting off blood flow and leading to even worse problems of misalignment and everything. But as you take notice of that, then you're able to be a little bit more self-aware, able to release that tension bit by bit. And maybe sometimes you notice you're clamped right back up again. Okay, well, now that I notice I'm doing that, ooh, can I breathe into it and let go to the best of my current ability, even despite or even in light of taking into account whatever else is going on in my life. I know why I'm doing this, but I'm just gonna let go as well as I can right now.
Yeah, what she said.
You know, human stuff. Yep.
Well, it's about that time.
My tummy is grumbling.
Yeah. And we have coconut chicken waiting for us tonight.
Ooh. Yes, Kyle, do you have anything you want to add?
Is there more to the Enneagram, or was that just like an
No,
illustration?
there's a huge amount to the Enneagram, and that was just the most surface part, and it's part that most people will relate to because that's some of the stuff that Ichazo cribbed from to do his Enneagon things that he did that all of the Enneagram of personality came out of.
Okay.
A great question. We just don't want people to get too lost in the weeds with the when you build out the chief feature stuff in relation to the Enneagram, it's easy for people to get carried away and sucked into, oh, this is what I do, this is who I am. And
Yeah, more this is who I am, and that's something that
yeah,
we need to avoid. You'll notice that all of these Enneagram of personality people go around saying, I am a one, or I am a five, or I am a three. And um, we call that the is of identity.
yeah,
It is in fact the fixation that we're talking about. It is the identifying with the object that's presented to you. And nobody is a one. Nobody is a three. Nobody is a nine. This is a behavior or a set of behaviors that you do frequently.
mhm.
That's how you should actually understand what the Enneagram is really talking about. It's not that you have this personality and you can make this personality all fluffy now and put bells on it and a few ribbons and it looks very cool. It's not that.
I mean, he's describing what I was shorthanding as the spiritual bypassy aspect of
Yeah.
Enneagram. Yeah.
But when you really understand it and understand that it's talking about where your attention goes in sleep, the only way to step back from that is to disidentify with it. Don't go around saying I am a one. It's like going around saying I am my nafsa amara. That would be dumb.
It seems weird, because
Yeah.
we don't do that. That is not a tendency, that is not a custom, but it is the same thing.
Yeah, I try not to bust on the Enneagram of personality too much because a lot of people rely on it and that's all they got. And, you know, it keeps them occupied. But I pretty much hold it in complete contempt.
Mm.
But that's just me. And anybody who knows the Enneagram would look at me and go, oh, he's doing this.
He is this. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, any last thoughts? All right. So, just to recap, we have invited you to take some time to observe the words you use when you talk to yourself. As Mushtaq said, he tends to have said, or sometimes even now still says, I should, blah, blah, blah. They should, blah, blah, blah. I tend to say personally, I don't know. I don't know about this. I don't know about that. I don't know who I am. Osama, you were sharing that you say, I can't. I can't do this. I can't do that. Yeah. So I'm sure there are others left to be discovered.
Yeah. And of course, it's a little bit more complicated than just finding the phrase, but it
Good.
starts with finding
That's
the phrase.
starting there. But other than that, look for the patterns. Look for the things that you really tend to fall into doing when you're
Yeah. And
going
if you
about your
get
life.
really curious about this, as James just pointed out,
Hmm.
we have an Enneagram playlist on the Nine Sided Circle channel.
Yep.
And if you really want to know, you can talk with Nora and I directly, and we'll help you out or make you crazier, one of the two, or both.
Yeah. So you've got options to DIY and to seek support on this if you like, and you're
Yeah.
here.
Or you can go spend $5,000 on a Enneagram course, and then you can be a number.
Yep. Up to you. But it is also up to you what you get out of it. And if you find yourself able to go against the grain and to look deeper than this, I am the thing, then you may find some gold there. So, anyways, keep up the good work, people. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're about to head off to the dinner table. But for this week, we can say goodbye to you, wave to each other.
Hi, folks.
And next week, I believe, is a Two Talk Sunday, God willing. And we will see you
Yeah,
Sunday
next week's
morning.
going to be heavy. We're going to have some really wild stuff to go through.
So we will be meeting at on Sunday, of course. That will be 10:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And we'll be meeting a second time, probably as usual, with a different topic at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Looking forward to seeing you then, God willing. Take
Bye,
care.
folks.